And we are back with AR Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I am A.R. And today I am joined by Keren Ouliel. I've been
Yeah,
practicing
good.
that off camera for like, I don't even know what, 30, 45 whole seconds. But we did it.
Good
How are you
job.
doing, Keren?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I am outstanding and improving. Keren is
Good.
has a debut book coming soon.
Yeah.
What? Oh, is it called The Order?
Well, the series is going to be called The Order, and then the first book will be called Annex. So yeah, it's going to be a series of 3 books, I believe. Because I haven't finished writing it just yet. And yeah, so the first one will be called Annex. It will be published later this summer. Yeah, that's about it.
Well, that's awesome. You're a fellow summer debuter. My
Yeah.
debut is coming out June 21st.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's exciting, and it's awesome that you'll be following suit like a couple months after that. So it all works out.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And for the people tuning in, that is Annex ANNAX instead of
Oh,
the
ANAX. Yeah.
yeah. Now, yeah, awesome. So before we get a little deeper into the content of what we're going to be talking about today, where can people find you? Instagram links, if your gerbil has a YouTube channel devoted to, I don't know, unboxing gerbil food.
No, just on Instagram for now. It's Keren Ouliel basically, which is KERENOULIEL.
Okay. Now, diving right in, what got you into writing? Where did it all start? Was it from a young age? Did it mature later on? Walk me through it.
Well, my earliest recollection of actually wanting to, write something was when my mom actually gave me, I think it was like the first Harry Potter book when I was 9 years old or something like that. And I've always been a kid that kind of took imagination to like the furthest way possible. And I always like to tell stories to myself, to my mom, and all that. And when I actually started actually reading on my own, without someone being there and helping me, it just started evolving by itself. It was almost like a natural sort of course of way, if that makes sense. Like, when I was 9 years old, like, what did I know about life? But I knew that I wanted to write and I wanted to tell stories and I wanted to engage people in the same way that I was engaging myself when I was reading. So that's sort of like where it all started for me. But it took a long time to actually coming from that to wanting to publish and actually not being afraid to share it with everyone else, I guess.
That's a funny way of putting it, because honestly, what do I know at 26? It,
Well, yeah.
I always feel that way. Like if I were to write my book, if I were to have finished writing my book when I originally came up with the idea at like 18, 19, I mean, like, I think it would be such a terrible book compared. I mean, not saying that it's phenomenal now, but I think it would be significantly worse just because, where was I at mentally when I was in my 20s? Like nowhere, nothing.
Yeah, well, I've been writing this book since I was 20, so it's been 10 years now. So, it's evolved, and I can say the same thing. What did I know when I was 9? Exactly like I say it now. So, but yeah, when you're a kid, you don't really you dream big, I guess. But actually doing it and actually, achieving those dreams, I don't think a lot of people actually have that. So I guess,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I guess that's the kind of cool thing about writing. Whereas, like, let's say that you grew up fascinated on Disney Channel movies, and you were like, "Oh, I want to be an actress." You would have to be an actress. You would have to go through debuting, and like, your ability is based on other people's, basically. Uh,
Yeah.
my background is in engineering. When I got into immediately after school, just the whole thing about engineering was like that's the thing that really turned me off about it. Was that no matter how much you want to put into it, you were just always limited by happenstance, circumstance. But writing, nothing.
Yeah.
You just sit down, you get the typing, and if you have it, you have it. And if you don't, you can get to it. There's no limitation. There's nothing stopping you.
Well, that's the amazing thing about writing is that you are only limited by your imagination and what you actually think. And, whether you do something about it or not, whether you publish, whether you just tell stories to yourself, to your loved ones, it doesn't even matter because, you always have it. And it's just one of those things that if you're not doing it, well, for me, anyways, if you're not doing it, if you're not writing, if you're not fulfilling, I would say, the talent, then you're just kind of losing a part of yourself. And
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I like the way that you put that. I already like your writing. So
Oh, thank you.
and pardon me if I sound a little bit like an armchair uh therapist here, but what about playing with did you play with dolls when you were a kid? Or
Yeah,
action figures, or
I
did you play with toys frequently?
yeah, definitely. I had like an army of Barbies all across my bedroom. Yeah, I've always been like a cluttered kind of person.
Hmm.
So like my dolls would have been like everywhere in my bed, on my floor, or whatever. Yeah, my mom, it would drive her insane, but yeah.
Now, the whole thing, the reason I brought that up is, were you more of a maintenance person with your toys? Like, did you keep them just to maintain them, play with them like every here and here, or did you have intricate plot lines? Did your imagination ooze out into your playtime, basically?
Oh, definitely. My imagination is everywhere. When I sleep, when I talk, to this day, like I would, I don't know, I would get scenarios brought up to me by like literally nothing. So definitely when I was a kid and had toys, it would definitely be some recurring plots. Nothing that I can remember, but yeah.
Well, the whole reason I bring that because I think it's kind of interesting that playing with toys is really the first time that most people have any idea of actually creating a plot, messing around with different characters. Because obviously, whatever, when you do like the little voice, like, oh, duh, 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 right? Like, you have to make different voices for different characters, right?
Yeah.
So, like, just right there, that's the first time that you have to make a different character. It's like, oh, well, this one has a cape over his head. Does he talk like, duh, 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 or like, oh, maybe this one has like a robot, just imagination as a kid. That's the first time you can really mess around with plot lines and even take a step further. The first time I ever got a toy that was female, because most of the toys that I get are like guy Power Rangers, most like
Yeah.
guy things, not to get me tooed, right? But it was just what I got. And then the very first time I got like a girl toy, it was from like a McDonald's toy thing. It was Shigo from Kim Possible, the girl with the black hair and the green skin and
Oh
whatnot.
yeah.
Yeah. So I remember that was the first time I ever developed a girl character, and I had to think. It was like, oh, I wonder how this is different now. And that was the very first time I ever thought of like a romantic twist ever in my stories ever as a kid. That was the very first time I could think of like, oh, I have a girl now. I wonder if they're attracted. Like it was the very first time I ever got like that development. Do you have a similar type of thing? Like the very first time you got like a guy character and you're like, oh shit, or did that happen immediately?
I honestly don't remember, but I remember that there were in my plot lines there was never like a very solid romance sort of thing.
Mm.
Like to this day, I feel like romance in plots and stuff like that is just something that it's there and it's nice to have, but it shouldn't like dedicate the viewers or the readers or whatever whoever consumes the media to its plot. Like there are much more I don't know,
Per-
bigger things.
Pertinent things, yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's
Man.
nice to have. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Obviously I enjoy reading romance novels and watching, you know, romance and whatever, but in my, like, in my head, imagination was so much more than that. It was like telling a story that was much more than just, you know, like romance. So for me, having let's say the Barbie Ken doll, for example, it wasn't really a big deal. Like, it was always there. It was like, okay, it's there.
That's interesting. And a really interesting plot kind of segue, because one of the things that annoys me the most in TV shows that I'll get really into, or movies that I really like, although really it happens doesn't happen too much in movies, that happens a lot more in like TV shows like The Magicians or The 100, like both on
Yeah,
Netflix, where they have this amazing plot line that's like, you know, really imaginative and like really creative, and like, oh man, yeah, I want to like be in this world. I want you to explain as much as you can about the world, and like, you know, world build as much as you can. And then by season 2, all they care about are the hookups between character A and character B, and now character A and B broke up and now they're hooking up with C and D. I don't care. I'm not in high school. Like,
yeah.
that type of shit doesn't move me. I want to stay
It's
focused on that fantasy, on that fiction, you know?
exactly, that's exactly the point. And I feel like that in most of those shows, unfortunately, even like the romances, it's like I said, it's nice to have, but those romances or you know, hookups or whatever, they're usually very unhealthy and very like show, I don't even know how to put it, but they show like a very dark side of romances that later on, you know, if for me, if you're taking some sort of plot line, whether it be romance or vengeance or I don't know, whatever else, it has to serve a purpose. And if it doesn't serve a purpose, then it's either just, you know, baiting the viewers in something or just, you know, plain waste of time. That's what I think. Especially when you take that and add on to it unhealthy habits or things that, you know, later on people, usually younger viewers, readers, kind of build their own fantasy over, if that makes sense at all.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And you bring up a great point, which is what is redundant and what is not redundant when it comes to writing, right?
Yeah,
Because I have to say that one of sometimes the scenes that take me that most stand out to me are when the writer kind of admits like the obviousness of the scene and basically writes it within the scene. And it's one of those things that it could be like, why are they showing me this? You could have it that way, but it's also just interesting to show it. Like Pulp
yeah,
Fiction starts off with the bad guys talking about how they pronounce uh how do you say Big Mac in France? No, quarter pounder in France, because they don't have the metric system.
yeah,
If you were to put that to like a person that was only like focusing on the action, you could say, oh well, they don't need that scene. It doesn't move the plot forward, and it's true. But it's one of those things that it's like iconic now, and it's like it's an interesting thing because it wasn't done before, and it's one of the things like you typically never get to see the point of view of the bad guys. You just see the bad guys show up, shoot some people, and then leave. You never see them 5 minutes before on what the conversation they're having on the way to the hit. You know,
yeah,
it's like one of those things that at what point do you stop? At what point is it, are you showing an interesting point of view? Or at what point are you just filling up your pages with things that don't really move the plot forward?
yeah. But I feel like in most cases you sort of get, it does serve a purpose, which is why, you know, let's say you take the villain side, it does serve the purpose of showing you that, you know, people are not just one-sided. Just
Mm,
because he's a villain doesn't mean that, you know, all that he does is like bad things or
villain.
whatever. Not, yeah, yeah, not to like, you know, take the villain side, but um you can have very things that don't move forward the plot but does have some sort of purpose. Like a hangout between friends doesn't usually move forward the plot, but it does show you that realism of, you know, it's not only this or that. But yeah, like you said, the line is very like blurred when things are too redundant and when they're not.
Yeah, I mean, like it blows me away sometimes that I'll look up a movie that I really like, and then the same people that I think, I'll hop on Reddit, and I would think that like people are going to be agreeing with me, and then everyone's saying it's like, oh, I don't even know why they had this scene and that scene, and it was like, oh, but why are you caring about it? It was just funny, wasn't it? Who cares about why it was there? I mean, like to me, it was entertaining, just the situation. Who cares how they got to that situation or before the situation? Again, it's one. It really is, like you said it perfectly. It really is a blurred line. At what point does something? Well, I guess it depends on the writing. If you make it interesting, you can do whatever you want, right?
Yeah, but it also depends on whoever consumes the media, because you and I can see the same movie and have completely different reactions to it. The same goes in writing. Some people enjoy more those, small um small scenes that have no significance when it comes to plot, but and then some other person would say like, oh, I don't like it at all. So you can't please everyone. That's like the bottom line, I guess.
Which is another great segue. When do you draw the line? Let's say that you, all right, especially with everything going on today, right? Let's say that with
Mhm.
your book happens that, your fans react in a certain way and they're like, oh, we want the plot to go forward this way. Or maybe, especially with everything going on in the world, maybe certain people look at you, it's like, oh, well, we want those emotions conveyed in a certain way. And you're just like, oh, well, I don't want to, maybe you might not want to go into that whole thing. Maybe you might,
Yeah,
maybe you would rather just very specifically ignore that so you can focus on things that are distracting. And like that in itself is the statement you're trying to make, to not bring light to that, to a situation like that. So when do you draw the line? When do you say like, hey, you know what, for as much as I care about my fans and I obviously want the pool to continue and I want the people that are already fans to continue being fans, I'm gonna do me. I
yeah.
have to do what I want to do.
I guess it comes down to the whole I have to do me, because it's gonna sound super cliche and whatever, but you have to do what comes natural to you. So when I write, I don't necessarily say to myself, oh, okay, this is okay, or this is wrong, or whatever. I just sort of, I just go with the flow. And oftentimes my characters are very much dictating the plot in ways that I never thought possible. And it's just, if you're not doing what's natural to you, if you're not doing you as an author, as a writer, as a person, it comes out fake. And I guess fans would much prefer someone staying true to themselves, well, the majority of them, I guess, than, doing just to, I don't know, put up a pretense that isn't even true, I guess.
Hmm. And to kind of expand on that a little further, at what point will you kind of cave in? At what point will you just stay true to what you want to do? Let's say that you have like a character that, I don't know, maybe you write like a really successful villain that people like really despise and they keep on, and all they want is like that death to happen. Are you gonna cave in and eventually give that death? Or are you gonna, maybe go on a redemption sequence? Are you gonna, give the, maybe write a story where the villain actually just does win, not like a Thanos thing that like he wins but then they win, the heroes win after. Maybe you just write a full story where the villain just wins straight up.
um, I don't know, to be honest, because, obviously I don't have that kind of fan base for now. So I don't know what I would do in that situation. But I guess what I want, well, what I feel like is true is just, being natural and seeing how it goes. And you can always try different plot lines and see if stuff works. And I'm always open for, I would say, it's kind of a criticism, but even though it's really not. Um, but if someone says, "Oh, you know what? I think that villain needs a redemption arc," even though they don't really, in my mind, they don't really need it. but I will probably think it through, and if I will see that it works, then great. But I won't force things just to please this or that. I feel like it, like I said, it comes off as a fake, and eventually I want to write something that my 9-year-old self would love, and that's really all it comes down to. It I want to be proud of what I'm doing and what I'm writing, and if someone doesn't like it, then okay, fine. I mean, you can't please everyone. So
Really well said. And it's a great
thank you.
segue. So, taking all that together, walk me through how you came up with the story of Annex, and then how you translated that idea into into the series of the Order.
So it started as dream, honest to God. I sort of like, the whole point of Annex is basically how natural disasters come to be and what's going on. And you've got Naya, who's the main character, and she's an environmental journalist. And she sort of kind of dwells into the whole natural disasters thing. And when I first got the idea for the book was through a dream of mine that I was actually the last person in the world after a meteor exploded, or I'm still blurring the details because it was like 10 years ago, but that's what's like the gist of it. And then I just started getting those small moments of inspiration when I sort of actually decided to kind of study or research on the whole natural disasters thing. So yeah, and then it was supposed to be just one book, and it evolved into another and then another. So
So then,
it's been
how
a
did
journey.
so then the thing that started the idea was an environment. It was
Yeah,
the idea of an apocalypse. So then, how did you
yeah.
take that environment and mold characters into it? What was the first character you came up with? What was the second? What was the motivation to start adding, third and fourth and fifth? Are there pets? I love a good pet
Yeah.
in a story.
um, I've never really considered it. It just sort of happened by itself. I don't really have that kind of, I know other writers have that, other authors have that too, but I don't have like that kind of this leads to that and this leads to that sort of vibe when I'm writing. The first scene that I was writing was when one character, which is Naya, was like the main character. She was the first one that kind of was created. Talks to one of the, well, he's a villain basically, and they discuss about how natural disasters can be um, shifted and how there's been an increase in that and what does it mean. And they sort of go into this discussion of Naya has this theory of, okay, maybe it's not that random, maybe there's something behind it. And he says to her, um you know you could be right. And then she just kind of challenges him and says, well, if something like that was right, surely people would notice, surely like world leaders will be like on top of it and will try to sort of not deny it, but sort of like fight it or something like that. And then he tells her, well, your world leaders, they don't really care about anything that isn't money or politics. So that was like one of the first scenes that I've written. And yeah.
Wow, that's a power punch of an opening sequence. Where did you get
Well,
the
it's not an opening sequence, but it's, yeah, it's one of those first scenes that I was writing. But yeah.
Oh, that's I had kind of like a similar thing where like the book more developed just off scenes that you kind of like paint in your head if you want to see just in real life, like in a movie.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that'd be cool if like X, Y, and you just like really dial it in until kind of a story develops within it and you kind of just
Yeah,
string it together.
definitely. I usually most of my plot lines comes from those seemingly random scenes that sometimes have purpose, sometimes don't have purpose. Some of them don't even make it to, you know, to the final version of the book, but they were still there to kind of help me figure out what I want to do, what I want to write.
Now, walk me through or expand a little bit more on what it took to actually create that into a series. How did that environment change? How did the development of the characters? How did that lead into that having to be okay? Well, I can't do this in one book. It has to be a sequence.
Yeah, well, I had like an original idea to, well, I can't go into much detail without, you know, spoiling the whole book, but I had this initial idea that um, this was how it was supposed to end, and was a very vague and open kind of way to end the story. And it just made me realize that I have like I'm building this world within our world, obviously. And I have so much more to like expand on. I have so much more to tell about it. And my characters were like, I always joke about it, but they were very like cardboard kind of characters like 10 years ago. And the more that I wrote and the more that I kind of put myself in that plot or in that world, then the more that they became evolved and the more that they became, you know, actual people, I would say. And they have, I guess, full control over where I take the story because it's their story in that sense. But once I figure out that I have so much more to tell and so much more to do and like so much more that I want to share, then it just kind of made sense for it to be a series and not, you know, being just one book.
Now, the thing that is kind of a through line of most series, like books that are like going to be in a series or a volume or have sequels to them, is that there's an element of world building, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
significant or if it's a side note. It's mostly there for just about everything. Do you think what is the gauge of world building in your book? Do you focus heavily on the fantasy or the allure of this new world that you've created, or do you focus more on the character development where the world building is a happenstance, a seeding,
Well,
a setting sequence?
well, I would say that most of the characters are already developed in some sort of way by the time the book actually starts with its plot. And then I've built it in the sense that um, you have Naya, which the whole series is going to be from her point of view. So you kind of, as a reader, you're supposed to kind of unravel this world in accordance to what she thinks and what she sees and what she does. So it's more about world building, I would say, than actual character development, even though there is character development. But because most of those characters have already been through some sort of thing in their life, they're already kind of not developed to the point where they can't change, but they're already their own person. So it's more about world building, I would say.
Now, what do you think are the challenges of the world building?
Well, it's always about whether or not you get the message across to the reader, because, you know, as much as I would prefer people to sort of see what I see or, you know what I know and all that, it's always about how do you kind of put it across on page, on paper, and what, like, how do you control what the reader sees and whether or not it's in accordance to what actually is going on. I think that's like the biggest challenge because for me, when I read or when I watch something that is heavy on word building, it takes me a bit longer to get into the hang of things. So I would say that's like my biggest challenge. to actually get the message across and get people to understand, okay, who is this, not who is, but what is this world and how does it differ from ours, and what societies are dealing with, we're dealing with, and like, yeah.
Hmm. Now, do you feel that you draw from real life um events, real life things that happen to you, world events? Do you feel these all are inspirations for the world building that you create? And do you think that and where do you draw your parallels from? Because I think for the most part, the reason why world building is such a big thing is that it's kind of our way of setting up our own fantasy world with our own rules, but also kind of pointing a light to the problems that we see in society as authors.
Yeah. um most of the most of the societies in that world are from, something that I personally know best. Let's say one society is more like based like on an army. I've done my army service in Israel because it's mandatory, so I'm more familiar with that and more like can draw inspiration from that, and sort of how the whole organization works and how the society works, and how even the smallest details, like who takes care of who and how do you get money, that sort of thing, like sort of, I would say, a society within our society. So yeah.
And it's very interesting too that you brought up money, especially with everything that's going on today with money and assets and cryptocurrencies and the devaluation of the dollar and XYZ just across the board and whatnot. So, how do you treat the idea of money in a post-apocalyptic world?
Well, the story itself is not a post-apocalyptic world yet. I'm
Hmm.
not going to take it to that. Um, the thing is that the issue of money is one of those things that when you build a world, it's the one of those things that you have to pay attention to, because you want it to be as realistic, I would say, as possible. Um, and for in that society, for example, you have a very ancient sort of society that has always been there, so its income and money wise, it's not that much of a problem, so to speak. But it's also like, how if you have that, let's say, I don't know, currency or money, and it's it's going to run out eventually. So I just took the high road and said, okay, there are people in that society that are a part of the regular world, and they sort of help with the income and help with, bringing food to the table, I would say.
Now, this is something that I just actually asked somebody prior to talking to you about. And what limitations do you think world building brings? Like, have you ever gotten to the point that you developed your world and then as you're writing, you realize, oh, wait a minute, I can't do that? Like, for example, in my book, though, it got to a point that I wanted to have a scene that like a character says, "Ah, Jesus," or "Ah, Christ," or like something like that. But I step back,
Yeah.
or "Oh God," something like that. Oh my God. But I realized I can't have any of that in the book because there isn't any religion in the book. There wouldn't be Christianity on a planet XYZ light years away. So I just realized right there is like, oh, like because of my own world building of the thing that I developed, I can't do a thing that normally I would just do. And that even goes further with, the restaurants. I can't make a reference to, animals. I can't make a reference to like a dog or a cat or whatever, because, why would they have that over there? And if they do, that's just kind of lazy. You're going to make an entire planet, but it just happens to be exactly like Earth. So like it's, there's a lot that comes with it. What do you think? Do you face any challenges like that with world building?
Not in this book, because it's, like I said, it's a sort of a world within our own. So the setting is very, modern. It's set in modern time London, but it does because the people there in that hidden world, they don't really believe in God. They are more descendants of the people who kind of founded the Greek mythology. So they won't say, what, Jesus or stuff like that, because they don't believe in it. I can, sort of excuse myself with using it if it's just out of habit. I know some people in Israel, they say Jesus, even though, they're Jews, because it's sort of like, not to be disrespectful or something like that, but it's sort of like, like a slang kind of thing. But I do have another book planned that is well, it's not really a post-apocalyptic world, but it's a very different world from ours, that I won't be able to use those terms because there is no religion and no like need for that. And I guess a lot of it is like in the smallest details. Like I said before, you have to really consider the sort of setting and the type of world and the type of people in it and what their culture is and who they are, and to sort of avoid those things.
So you walked us through the creation of Annex. How far are you in the process of the publication? Are you to the point now that you're past the editing stage? Are you on the editing stage? Are you formatting now? That's where I'm at right now, and I wanna. It's not fun.
No, it's not fun. I'm already past that. So what I've done is work with a self-publishing house that actually cater to everything else, because if I had to do it, I would be like all over the place and nothing will ever come out of it. So we've done the formatting, we've done the editing. Thank God for that. That was a mess. And we're just waiting to see like how we're gonna publish it on Amazon and when we're gonna upload it. So we've got pretty much everything, like cover wise and all that.
And you have the formatting done and everything that you need to for both paperback or an ebook, or are you only going with ebook?
Yeah. No, we have both of them. I have for the paperback and also for ebook. So on Amazon, it's going to be basically print by demand and also ebook.
Very cool. And are you gonna use any
Yeah.
other things? Like, are you gonna go for Ingram for the hardcover?
What do you mean?
Like, there's a platform called Ingram, I think, or Instagram or something like that, that they create hard cover books, like books like these.
Oh yeah.
And even you can even design like the dust jacket cover and everything.
Yeah.
And you can make it look, and they're professional
that's
as
cool.
shit. Like you can actually make it look exactly like this.
That's cool. I didn't know it was a possibility, to be honest.
Yeah, and I guess they have a thing with Amazon that, how Amazon has like exclusivity that you can't like really publish too much around them. That they're actually fine because they offer a different service. Like Amazon doesn't have hardcover, so since they offer a different service, you can use both of them no problem.
That's cool. I'm definitely gonna check it out. I didn't know it was like a possibility.
Yeah. I have my that's what I have my heart set on. I can't wait to hold that one. And I could really care if it's gonna sell or not. I want it just for me to have my hardcover of my own book, just like hold it, like, yep, and be able to knock on it,
say that's my book, that's like something that I've created. Yeah, for sure.
Put like a little bib on it, name
just
it,
watch it,
go to sleep with it, wake up, feed it,
just
nothing weird, nothing weird.
No, of course not. Just all kind of natural process of an author,
Yeah, just natural things you do with your baby.
Yeah, exactly.
So then how did you you see how natural that is? It just comes out. Oh Jesus.
You see?
And when I was trying to write the book, every 4 minutes I was like,
I
can't do that. Nah, I can't do that. Nah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So then how about the process of creating the cover? How did that go through?
Well, I have an amazing best friend who has been with me throughout this whole process of the book. And she kind of managed to capture the cover in a way that I have no idea how she done that, but she just kind of went with it and created this most amazing cover. And when I first started, because she sent me those drafts, and I was like, oh my god, that's perfect. And the more she sort of played with it, the more perfect it became. And by the time that I saw the final version, I was like tearing up. And I have no idea how she's done that. She just like took what I was thinking and just put it on, on Photoshop. I have no idea how she done that, but she's like amazing like that.
Isn't it crazy how certain people just dial into things? I spent
Yeah.
I spent in total 100, then 60. It was like I don't know, like 250, maybe $300 close on potential book covers. Uh, and then the one that I'm using currently right now is one that a fan made that I don't even know, like from Taiwan.
Wow.
Uh, and yeah, and they randomly approached me. It's like, oh, I saw your book XYZ. Can I get the book? And then I gave it to them, just like, oh, like, all right, whatever. Didn't even know that they were like an artist. Then they sent me back the most beautiful, minimalistic, philosophical cover I've ever seen. And one of the covers that I paid for was from the same person that does the Marvel covers, like the movie posters.
Hmm.
That he
Yeah.
designs their movie posters, and he was blessed me with doing one of my covers, and still a random one that a fan made for free is the one that
How
I'm using.
amazing is that? Like someone can actually, it's like they're in your head, and they just, pick up this random thought that you have and just sort of put it on paper, on Photoshop or whatever. I don't know. I'm baffled every time that, I hear a story like that. It's like, it's so amazing. Like, what are the odds?
Look, I can even kind of show it to you because I have the actual thing right here, but it's like a painting and it's like on a screen. But I designed this thing on a laser, which is basically the same thing. I don't know how well you can
Oh,
see it.
yeah, that's cool.
All right, and you see how it kind of looks like a person falling down?
Yeah.
All right, so that is his representation of a black hole. Because you see how like the body
Oh,
cuts
okay.
off right here at that line?
Yeah.
So that line is his representation of a black hole. And you can't see it well, but the entire background is actually binary. It's like ones and
Hmm.
zeros. And the things that look like stars are just ones and zeros that are like highlighted to
Oh,
be white instead of
wow.
black and everything. It's one of those things that I looked at and I'm like, how did you even
How
like
did you know?
how did you like no on a different level because like, it had to be one of those things that had to be like divine intervention or something. I don't even know what because like he put elements of the story that literally no one else but me knows about yet, and
Wow.
they're represented in that thing. And again, it's one of those things that, like really good art, I think you wouldn't be able to tell. Like
Yeah.
even if you're like a super fan and you reread the book like a couple times, that cover won't make as much sense until after you read the third book.
Yeah.
And then you go back and you're like, oh shit, and like the depths of it, it's like it's almost scary because how am I gonna get that for a second one? Uh, I don't know what to do
That's
now. I just want to use the same one but in a different color.
well, you can always do that because then you sort of, have some sort of aesthetic. But yeah, it's always about how do you top that? Like, how do you make something that it's even better in writing or in covers? I would say you want to maintain that same sort of level of excellence, or even, you know, make it higher level of excellence.
Yeah, elevate
Hard.
it.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
Now, how do you deal with the idea of genres? Do you have a specific genre that you try to stay within, or is it something that you just play along with whatever plot you're going through? That is the genre that I'm doing. I'm doing the genre of Keren Ouliel.
I usually good. I tend to stick to fantasy. This is what I know. This is what I prefer as a reader. I feel like there's so much you can do in that genre. So I'm sticking to what I know, basically.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, to kind of expand a little bit more on where the inspiration comes from. what are your favorite examples of fantasy? Well, you talked about Harry Potter, so I can assume that was
Mhm.
a major inspiration of yours when you were younger. But how did that mature? How did that grow up? And because obviously Harry Potter is a story meant for children. Not saying that you
Yeah.
can't enjoy it as an adult, but you understand what I'm saying. It's like
Yeah,
the
definitely.
events that described it. There's not going to be like somebody getting decapitated and shit like that. Not saying a book
Yeah.
needs to have that, but I'm just saying.
Oh, I'm
Um,
not getting inspired over, decapitation, just to be clear. I take a lot of inspiration from Greek mythology, which is a huge theme in my book.
Brutal, yeah.
Yeah, Greek tragedies as well. Yeah, obviously, Harry Potter will always be the thing that got me into writing and into reading as well. But I don't usually take inspiration from that, though I do see some of the things that J.K. Rowling had done in terms of world building and say, oh, okay, maybe I want that, maybe I want that, and sort of, you know, put that in my book, but not as far as, inspiration for plot and stuff like that, or characters, I guess.
Well, the Greeks are like, they are the OGs. They literally invented literature and like how
Yeah,
what we define what modern literature, I would say. And
yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about plot lines. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because you might not know more about it than I do. But the original word for tragedy, like they didn't have a word for tragedy in Greek. Like tragedy and comedy were one word
Yeah,
when it was the idea originally came up. That's how they thought
yeah.
of the world. That
In a
tragedy
lot
and
of
comedy was one thing.
yeah, in a lot of Greek tragedies or stories, you have a lot of sense of comedy or divine comedy some of some of them.
Yeah,
But
which really is just dark
it goes
comedy.
hand in hand. Yeah, it goes hand in hand. It's a lot of dark humor there. It's a lot of like a very kind of fate leads everything, and destiny is all there is to it, and you know the tragic hero, for example, is one of I base now over it. In my mind, she's like the ultimate tragic hero, in which you have in most books you have like the character starts here and then slowly evolves and slowly goes up, or things get better for them. In the tragic hero sort of scenario, it's like kind of the opposite. You have like the character starts here and then slowly goes shit goes to hell, I would say.
Hmm. Now, if any person on this podcast has ever listened to any episode ever, they'll know that easily they'll know my answer for the next question, because it's without a single doubt has to be Breaking Bad. But what do you think is the best example of that type of character development, from seeing a character go from A to B?
Greek tragedies, definitely.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know if I have um an A to B sort of development that I've seen done super well that I'm like in awe by it. Not on top of my head, I would say. Sorry.
Nah, no problem at all. Kind of a random lowball, but going off with the idea, what is it about the Greek fantasies, the Greek stories that really allured you so much about it? Because I mean, what's not to love really? Because you have like all the fantasy and myth combined with all the amazing character development. But what is it to you that really sells the story more?
I would say it's the amount of different Greek myths there are, and to any myth, there's a whole bunch of, people saying how it actually went down, and you have sort of a lot of, let's say, Greek philosophers or just Greek literature that take the same story and just sort of give it a different vibe, or give it a different perspective, or just tell a whole other story. And the freedom to do whatever you want with the story and the myth is just, for me, you can't take up it's too tempting to give up on. So you kind of, you have those myths, but because these are just stories. You can basically sort of form them into your own story, and just sort of challenging to take that and, sort of imprint it in your own writing, in your own stories, and just kind of make it work.
Mm. Now, do you have a love of like TV shows and movies as well?
Sorry.
Do you have like a love for TV shows or movies as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. Netflix has been amazing lately.
What do you think? What are your favorite examples of fantasies and fiction and plot lines within a movie or TV show?
um, in a TV show, I would say definitely. Well, it's only because I've seen it last, but Shadow and Bone had been very educating on the whole terms of world building, and the 100 as well. And in movies, I would say the whole Marvel universe has been amazing in
Mm.
terms of, story and plot, and just shows that you can do so much with so many different characters, and everyone gets their own stories, and everyone gets their own plot lines, and there's always something new to see.
What are you the most excited about that's coming out from Marvel?
Loki.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, Loki. I haven't seen Black Widow yet because I don't know if it's out, but the cinemas here are closed. So that's a good, yeah.
A good reason why not to go. uh, yeah, I haven't. I don't think it's out. I don't. It's not out. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. So
But I mean, I don't even know how long it's gonna take for that to happen because well, all Disney's gonna have it on Disney Plus, I believe.
oh yeah, we can't have Disney Plus here, unfortunately.
No way.
Yeah, unfortunately. So we have to use other means to watch those shows and movies. But
Yeah,
the cinemas
VPN.
are, yeah, everything is legal. But the cinemas should open next week. I work in a cinema, that's my day job. So we are due to open next week, hopefully.
Oh, that's awesome. I've always loved I've always loved going to the movies since I was a kid. Way more than my
Yeah.
friends. I should have like picked that up. I should have picked up on that. I'd be ready. I remember I would sit down and like look up all the movie times and whatnot, and I would like schedule the perfect thing. It's like, all right, we're gonna get there at 10 a.m. Watch this movie. It ends at this time. We sneak out, go into this movie, and I'd have like four movies. I was like, all right, we're gonna pay for one. We're gonna watch four. We're gonna knock it out.
That's amazing.
We're gonna catch
Yeah.
everything that we didn't watch, and they only agreed to do that with me like twice. They were like, yeah, I'm not gonna spend the entire day at
Oh,
the movie theaters. I'm like, dude, what do you mean? That's not
what
the
do you
answer to life
mean?
to you? I would do
That's
that
like
today
the
as an
most
adult.
amazing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, that's how I hang out with my friends. We go to a movie. The experience of going to movies ever since I was a kid was amazing. You go and you watch, and most people, I feel like, are like that. I don't know if to watch four movies in a row, for me it sounds like a dream, but
Dream, yeah.
yeah.
Well, everything just depends on the person. Like, I have a friend that I actually really value their opinion in like movies and whatnot. But they're the type of person that they'll be watching a movie where you'd be watching anything with them, and like they'll need to like go to the bathroom, get a drink or whatever, and they'll get up without asking for it to be paused. It's like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
that's
like
okay to you? What
you're
if
missing out.
what if the monster comes out of the closet right now while you're taking a piss?
Yeah,
As you have your junk in your hand, his junk is in this dude's hand. You know, you're gonna
exactly.
miss the whole thing.
And it's not only that, it's just, if they do that and they don't ask you to pause, or if you're in a movie, obviously, and you can't pause, they will be like, oh, what happened? What happened?
Don't
And
talk to
yeah,
me.
I
Google
mean,
it.
you,
Yeah.
you should have watched the movie. Don't talk to me. Like, leave me alone. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when like you have like those friends that like that want to go and get more popcorn or whatever. It's like, dude, I don't care. I could be
Yeah.
out of anything. I could be about like I could be 4 minutes from losing air. If the movie has 3 minutes left, I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah. It's a great, use of your time. I mean, yeah. If someone doesn't like watching movies, that's like a huge red flag to me. No, that's not
Now,
gonna happen.
I usually like to end the podcast on kind of like a dream fantasy type of thing, right? So you watch Netflix, you have Shadow and Bone, which was based on a book to begin with, right? So let's
Yeah.
say that Anax comes out, book two comes out, Netflix producers hit you up and like, all right, we're doing this. You're gonna be the showrunner. You can pick your cast, you can do whatever you want. How are you gonna run the show? How are you gonna do it? Are you gonna, walk me through it? Are you gonna do every episode is gonna translate into one chapter, and you're gonna do it just all the way through until you have like 20 episodes per season or whatever, or how do you work it out? How would you do
Well, first of all, I'll have a major freak out
it?
that Netflix wants to produce my books. But I would say like 1 or 2 chapters per episode, I guess, will be, because if I had my way, there will be like a never-ending series on Netflix.
You do have your
Hello.
way. That's what I'm saying. Like there's no cap on money. You can hire whoever you want. You can have Leonardo DiCaprio, the entire Marvel cast. You can whatever you want. You can do that. What would you do?
I would do like a never-ending show. It comes up with, like, say, for one season, 15, 16 episodes, and then all throughout like season 20 or something, because I
How
always
long per
have,
episode?
I would say 40, 45 minutes, because that's like for me, an hour-long episodes are super hard to keep track on. So I would say 40 minutes.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Because basically, like those 45-minute episodes are 1 hour episodes if they were on TV. Because you cut it in
Yeah.
with like the thing. But because there's not really commercials anymore, there are TV shows that have just straight 1 hour episodes. And I'm trying to
Yeah.
think, I'm really not that crazy much of a fan of those. Although I'll watch. It's weird how that goes though, huh? Because like you'll lose track of that one episode that's 1 hour long, but then you'll watch 4 or 5 episodes of Breaking Bad, 45-minute episode, and that's in your head clear. You're like, oh yeah, what do you mean? So clear
Yeah.
that you think that something that happened 4 episodes actually happened like one episode ago because it was just like so clean.
But it's a lot of more about how you tell the story than, because you've got like an episode that is like an hour long and only like 4 or 5 things happen, and then you've got like episodes of 40 minutes, it's got like 20 things or 20 different things happening. So it's more, I would say, like, um shows like Game of Thrones, for example, are super hard to keep track on in my mind. So if when I watched it, um I had to pause like every half an hour or something like that, just to sort of figure out what happened, because it was either all so fast or just so confusing to me to keep track of.
Man, it's a good example. Oh, I think Game of Thrones is that type of show. It's an hour long, right? They're not 45 minutes.
Yeah,
They're a straight hour long each. Huh.
I think they started as a 45 minutes, but then it sort of evolved into 1 hour, which makes sense because the books are very hard to keep track on. I've tried reading, but it was like, for me, it was too much. Um, so they had a lot of things to sort of squeeze into, and a lot of characters and a lot of world building. So it made sense, but still, some people like it, but for me, I just, it's hard to keep track.
I got gifted one of the books and I could never get through it. And I've tried a couple different times, but it is just too dense. It's like chewing through like 4 biscuits from KFC without any water.
Yeah, that's that's just like, yeah, definitely. At first I thought like was the problem was that because I tried reading it in English and maybe like my vocabulary was not that good, or but I tried in Hebrew as well, and it was just like the same. Like you said, it's very dense and you have to be always like on top of your game, always in focus, and always like understanding what's going on. So
Yeah. Well, to kind of end it off, how do you feel about page length? Just because with everything that we talked about with Game of Thrones and every other book, the margins, the formatting, all these things are dependent on page length. Especially with how you said the idea of, well, you said that the book was 700 pages, I believe. And you said the idea that if you were to make it into a Netflix series, you would just have it a continual thing. So do you
yeah.
have an idea of like brevity, like you only want to hit a certain amount of words, or are you just limited for as long as we can make it, we'll hit it?
I would say that for the majority of my, well, when I was writing, I didn't really think of, how many words per page. It was more like how many words per chapter was accessible, because you've got like chapters in books that just goes on and on and on and on and on. So for me it was, in said chapter was about 2,500 or 3,000 words, was about, kind of made sense to end the chapter on. Obviously, as long as you don't interrupt the scene midway. But yeah.
Wow. Wow. And do you have the cover on your Instagram or anything like that that we can show for the people?
Not yet. I haven't done a reveal just yet. I'm planning on doing it next week. So,
All right.
but
Well,
yeah.
well, by the time that this is out, it will definitely have been next week. So again, can you tell people where the Instagram is, where to follow you, where to check out the cover, everything? And if you have, I know that you don't have a website yet, but if you have an idea for one or anything that you want to drop, this is the time to do it. Go ahead, please.
So my Instagram is Keren Ouliel, which is KERENOULIEL. That's where you can find me. I don't have a website yet. I'll probably have one in I would say a month from now, but it will be linked in my bio.
So make sure to check out for that. Keren Ouliel.
Good, good.
I'm telling you, I had to say it out of camera. I'm getting attacked over here by
Yeah, I
my
know. I
props.
see that.
No, it's fine. Just he hasn't been fed in a while. That's why he's getting angry. But
Okay.
you know how it is. But again, just phenomenal. Annex, that is the book to look out for, and the Order series coming out. I believe you said summer
Later this
20.
summer.
Yeah, so summer 21 is the first book, and without putting too much pressure on you, what are you thinking? Like a year between releases?
A year, yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah, that's the main thing, right?
Yeah.
I aim to release this debut in like February, and now we're talking about June. But what can we do, right?
Yeah, well, life.
Yeah, it's life, huh? Well, again, Keren, you have been amazing. This has been
Thank you.
a
So have
lot of
you.
fun. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you again. This is AR Tales, aka the ART podcast. I am Amina Bal. This has been Keren Ouliel.
Good.
And we will check back on you need to check back on us on Monday for our next author interview, Wednesday for our next tutorial solo cast, and then Friday for our next group cast. Peace out.